John had spent most of his life in the cold embrace of the graveyard. He dug graves by day and stole from them by night. Trinkets, jewelry, even the occasional gold tooth, nothing was off limits. It was his secret trade, and he was good at it. One day, he saw an old woman, around 90 years old, being buried. Her family placed 2 big gold coins over her eyes before sealing the coffin. John heard about this tradition only in old folklore. He had never witnessed such a thing in all his years as a gravedigger. He had never seen coins so big, so pure. They shimmered even in the dull afternoon light, practically begging to be stolen. John thought he won the lottery. That night, he returned. The graveyard was unnervingly silent, so quiet that he could hear his own heartbeat. But John didn't care. He was accustomed to the eerie stillness. He started digging the old lady's grave. When he opened the casket, the old woman's face was just as it had been in the morning, serene, undisturbed. He plucked the coins from her eye sockets, trying not to look at her sunken, empty gaze. By the time he returned home, he was giddy. These coins could fetch a fortune. He placed them on his bedside table and drifted into sleep. Then came the whisper. It was soft at first, almost like the wind sneaking through the cracks in the walls. But then he heard it again, a rasping voice calling his name.
John, I want them back. They are mine. I want them.
Through the window, barely illuminated by the moonlight, stood a figure. A hunched old woman with sagging skin and a lifeless stare. The moment he laid eyes on her, she lifted a trembling arm and extends her withered palm, fingers slightly curled, as if she is demanding the coins back. John woke up drenched in cold sweat, his heart pounded. It was just a nightmare, but it felt so real. The next night, it happened again, and the next. John woke up to the same nightmare every night. Sleep became impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, the old lady was there. The whispers grew louder. The old lady came closer every time. Sometimes he'd find her standing at his bedside, her breath rancid, her skin reeking of damp earth. The worst part was her eyes, 2 gaping black holes, waiting to be filled. John's mind unraveled. He stopped eating, stopped working. He barricaded his door as if it would stop his nightmares. His nights became a never-ending nightmare, and his days were spent in terror. He could no longer tell what was real and what was a nightmare. He thought the only way to end it was to return the coins. That night, John held the gold coins tightly and made his way back to the graveyard. The rain poured heavily, soaking his clothes and turning the ground into thick mud. He knew exactly where to go, because he was the one who dug the grave for the old lady, and he was the one who dug the grave again for the gold coins. But when he reached it, he froze in terror. The grave was open. The coffin lid had been pushed aside. The inside was dark and empty, as if waiting for something. It is when he heard the whisper again.
John, I want them back.
John turned slowly, his heart pounding. The old woman stood before him. She was no longer in his nightmare. She was there, in front of him. Her rotting hand reached out. She extends her palm and says, "Those were my prized possessions." John slowly places the coins on her palm. As he lets go of the coins, a wave of weakness washed over him, his vision blurring. He could feel the ground beneath him shifting. It pulled him down into the grave. His screams were lost in the night as the coffin slammed shut above him.